Hey guys, if you are new here, my name is Megan, and today we are going to be making some tallow balm. I am just about out, and I use this stuff every day as my daily lotion, and I'm gonna make some for Christmas gifts this year. So if you've been here before, you know that I just released a video, which I will link above, on how to render your own tallow. So I will not be going over, you know, the background of tallow or how to render it from suet today. If you're interested, please watch that video. Today we're just gonna be making the actual balm for use on your skin. So tallow balm is a super healthy, super easy DIY lotion to make once you have rendered your suet. You can also buy tallow already rendered, store-bought. I've never done it. I'm not real sure where to get it. If I find some, I'll link it down below. But the only ingredients you're gonna be needing today are tallow. So this is the tallow that we rendered the other day, and it is completely hard, dry, which is why you need your second ingredient, some sort of other carrier oil. I'm using sesame oil. There are tons of different oils you could use, olive oil, jojoba oil, that are all super beneficial for your skin. They all have different properties, so do your own research. Depending on what you're gonna be using this balm for, you can really just tailor all of the ingredients to what you need. Coming to my third ingredient, I'm gonna be using two types of essential oils in this balm, lavender and jasmine. I am not an aromatherapist and will not be discussing essential oils at length, but those are the three ingredients that we'll be using today to make the balm. You can also put dried herbs, or like if you're doing like a little small jar, you wanna make it pretty, put some dried flowers on top. That's totally doable. Just be aware that if you're adding dried herbs, you may be introducing small amounts of moisture and air, which over time will make the product, it just won't last as long. It'll deteriorate molecularly faster because you're causing the fats to go rancid. So I don't put any dried stuff, but it would be cute if you had like a little tiny tub that was gonna be used pretty quickly and put a bunch of, I think that would be so adorable. Now for the oil and the tallow, the ratio that you generally wanna keep is 1:3 or 1:4. So 4 parts tallow to 1 part liquid room temperature oil. So the reason that you're adding liquid oil to this mixture is because tallow is so hard. It will eventually melt. You can use it on your skin just like this. You know, you warm it up, get it nice and warm, and then you can kind of spread it on your skin. It's a lot nicer if it's more malleable, like a lotion or a heavy cream. So adding another oil in will make it more soft and pliable, like this. Another thing I wanted to touch on before we get started was that I will be using the stovetop method with a stainless steel pot. This method is pretty quick. It should be done in less than 10 minutes, but you do have to constantly monitor it because you don't want to be over melting the tallow and scorching any of your oils. High heat and these oils, especially essential oils, can cause them to either evaporate or go rancid very quickly. So you want to keep everything at a very low temperature. I have done this in the crock pot before, which is a little bit easier. It's a little bit slower, but when you have large batches of tallow to melt, it's faster than using a pot. You can also do a double boiler method. I don't have a double boiler, but you can improvise with like a glass jar elevated in a pot full of water. But I'm not doing that today. Today we're gonna do it on the stove in a pot. I think that's all I needed to go over before we get started. Well, let's go then. I remembered. If you guys enjoy this content and want to see more of it, please don't be afraid to like and subscribe or leave me a comment down below. And I'm also on Instagram. Let's start with a very short list of ingredients you will need. The first being your, hopefully grass-fed rendered tallow. As I said before, I did do this the other day in another video, which I will link above. I am using sesame oil for its skin soothing properties, but I will put a few other good skincare oils on the screen. And you can really just tailor this balm to your needs based on the actions and properties of the oils that you decide to put in it. This is the stainless steel pot I'll be using, but I sometimes do use a crock pot for larger batches like my regular everyday use lotion. I will be using jasmine and lavender essential oils. Definitely do your research on the safety and usage of essential oils before you put these in your balms. And here's our workstation for the night. Like I said, it's a very simple process, minimal ingredients and minimal tools needed. But first things first, we're gonna put on gloves. Now, obviously, I don't do this if I'm just making my lotion for myself at home, but these are going to be Christmas gifts for family members, so I do want to be clean. I'm only filling a couple 2-ounce jars to make just little hand salves, really. So I'm not going to be using all of this tallow that we rendered. I'm going to measure out about 100 grams of tallow, and then with the ratio of oil, it will give me about 4 ounces of liquid tallow that I will then put into those 2 jars. I'm also gonna have a little bit left over, but I do that on purpose because I'm a mess and I spill things and all of that jazz. And I don't think I remembered to talk about this in the previous video, but it really helps in this instance to put your tallow in a wide mouth jar like I did here. It just makes it a whole lot easier getting chunks out if you aren't going to melt the whole thing. It just makes it easier all the way around. My final weight for the tallow is about 103 grams, and for the sesame oil, it's about 33 grams. So with our 1-to-3 ratio of oil and tallow, it is time to start melting. Here I'm just going to put a little bit of tallow at the bottom of the pot first and put it on very low so that it doesn't scorch. I do want that first layer of tallow in the bottom to kind of help buffer the rest of the tallow when I put it in and nothing scorches. Before putting the rest of the tallow in your pot, you're going to want to cut it up as finely as possible. You can put this in a blender or a food processor or a grinder. I just didn't want to have to clean those things, so I am just slicing it up into pretty small pieces by hand, which doesn't take too long if you're only working with a small amount of tallow, but with a larger amount, it would probably be easier to use a machine if you have access to one. I just turned the heat down. As you can see, especially with the stainless steel pot, because stainless steel conducts heat very well and very quickly, this is a constant monitoring process. And you'll want to keep that melting tallow in the pot constantly moving so that it's circulating the heat and not getting too hot. Once the pot gets up to heat and that tallow really starts melting in earnest, you're just going to want to start stirring and just keep stirring and keep stirring and keep stirring until it's finally done. This only took me about 5 minutes. But depending on the amount of tallow you use and the method you use, it could take longer. But once it's finished, you want to remove it from the heat immediately, and I'm just transferring the liquid tallow into another stainless steel bowl so that I can mix in the sesame oil and later the essential oils. And at this point, we are also on a time crunch because as soon as you remove that tallow from heat and it starts to cool, it will begin to harden. These are the jars I got on Amazon, which I will remember to link down below. They're just 2-ounce glass amber jars with a plastic top, and they are definitely cheaper when you buy them in bulk. Now it's time to add the essential oils. Disclaimer, I am not a certified or licensed aromatherapist, and I will not go into depth about essential oils because I don't feel like I'm qualified to talk to you guys about that. But I will say that as a general rule, the oil should be lukewarm or warm when you add the oils. Adding essential oils to a hot carrier oil can cause them to evaporate or worse, damage the molecules through excessive heat. And the amount of essential oils you want to add is recommended 5% or less than your entire solution. 1% or less is usually recommended for elderly and children, which is what I did. Everything you've wanted to your final oil, they're ready to go in the jars and cool. Here I'm just showing you how quickly it cools. This was freshly poured, and once it touched that glass, it was hard. So you will need to perform some quality control immediately after pouring this, just to make your life easier once it's completely cooled. I just let these sit uncovered in my kitchen, and they took less than 20 minutes to cool down. You don't want to cover them right away because the oil is still warm, and if you cover them immediately, then moisture will condense on the top of the lid. You are free to continue letting these cool on the counter or stick them in the fridge to finalize their hardening, but otherwise we are done, guys. Thank you for joining me today.